coordinator.
Okay, thank you, Leah. Chris, am I on? Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. It was a little crazy here as getting started. Thank you, Kristen, for wiping things up here. But it's good to have you all here. I was away the last couple of weeks and missed seeing you all. And I'm glad all of you that are here made it here safely, because it's a little icy out, and icy in here too, I guess, where Kristen's cleaning up. And you know that folks are dedicated to being with community if they risked the roads today and came out, or they really are interested in what's going on here, because we have some new folks too that braved the roads and came out. So we have some new folks here today. If you have questions after the service, I'll be standing in the back, and feel free to ask me any questions you might have, or as Tim said last week when I wasn't here, feel free to email me as well. So good to see you all, and thank you for coming.
I would like to introduce our minister for today. Reverend Allie Peters is excited to be swapping pulpits with Reverend Walter this morning. Reverend Allie is currently the minister at Southwest Unitarian Universalist Church in North Royalton. Previously, she has served congregations in Wisconsin and New Jersey. Reverend Allie grew up in New Jersey, but found herself in Ohio to study at the College of Worcester, where she graduated in 2010. Prior to ministry, Allie had a career as a middle school math teacher. Later, she attended Union Theological Seminary in New York City. Reverend Allie shares her daily life with her husband, Justin, and their Chihuahua mix, Jess. When she isn't working in her congregation, Allie enjoys doing improv comedy at her local theater in Cleveland. Reverend Allie and her husband are also currently preparing to welcome their first child, who is due at the end of March.
Good morning. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Olivia. As Olivia mentioned, my name is Reverend Allie Peters. I use she, her pronouns, and it is so good to be with you all this morning. I already swapped selfies with Reverend Walter from his office. I said, look where I am. It's really neat to be here together. Fun fact, the first Unitarian Universalist service I ever attended was here. When I was in college. So this is a really neat full circle moment for me. I offer us this call to worship this morning, written by M. Jade Kaiser, a minister and co-founder of Enfleshed Liturgy. May today offer you what your spirit needs to evolve, to expand, to unfold. May it stretch you, but just enough. Not by force or demand, but like an invitation that opens slowly, too careful to be rushed. May you be brave enough to loosen your grip on what you know and perceive, on what you have learned from fear or inherited from lineages of cruelty. May you give thanks for all the sources that gifted you with survival and wisdom, perspective and protection. But not let your gratitude unnecessarily wedge you to them forever. Everything has a season, a context, a place, and a time. Even truths that have freed you. Maybe there are some things that served you well for an era, but not any longer. Maybe it's time to rethink, reshape, review. Maybe you're ready to release another untruth handed to you early on, meant to keep you in line, in order, in compliance. What might be replaced with acceptance of your power and potential? for the sake of your own becoming and also us all. Your soul work is essential to the labors of love, collective and eternal. Material, relational, and communal repair are all forms of healing made possible by souls entangled in shared longing and commitments. So, may this day feed you and challenge you, surprise and comfort you, that you might have what you need to be courageous, to be humble, and to let your soul grow. Come, let us worship together.
Soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my there's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. That was my bad. No, I think it was your bad.
Our chalice lighting this morning is from UU Minister Reverend Amy Carroll Webb. We light this flame for the art of sacred unknowing, humbled by all that we cannot fathom in this time. We come into the presence of what we do know, perhaps the only thing we can ever know, that love is now and forever, the only answer to everything and everyone in every moment. Let us now rise in body or spirit as we sing our opening hymn, All Our Architects. The music can be found in the great hymnal, number 288.
morning. I'd like to invite the children and youth and anyone else who would like to get closer to the story to come on up here. Good morning. Hi, Julian. There are so many more of you than I expected. I thought the ice was going to scare everybody away today, so I'm so extra excited to see you. You can sit here if you like, or on the chairs. Come on up. All right. Hi. So, for today's story, we need a couple of actors, and I already have them. I already got them. Sorry, you're out of luck today, sir. I already got them. For this story, we have two roles. We have an old man who's going to be portrayed by Reverend Allie, and we have a little girl who's going to be portrayed by Juliet. So, Juliet, would you like to come stand right about here? And I'm going to read the story, and they're going to act it out however they see fit. All right? And this story is called How to Lift a Cow. All right. Sounds like something I would try, those of you that know me. I'd probably try to lift it and give it a hug and a kiss. Once upon a time in a small village far away, there was an old man. People from far and wide would flock to this village every day to watch him do something miraculous. Now, hold on. What does miraculous mean? Any ideas? Miraculous. What do you think?
It means like amazing and great.
Amazing. It's great. It's a miracle. It's unexplainable. Exactly. Thank you. Every morning, the old man would walk into the pasture full of cows outside his little house. And he would walk up to the biggest cow in the field. And he would lift the huge cow up over his shoulders. And for the record, in my story, the cow thinks this is fun. Okay? It's a game. The people would watch each day in amazement. How does he do that? They would wonder. He must just be a very strong man, people would say. Well, one day, a girl from the village asked the man, "How do you lift such a huge, heavy cow over your shoulders like that? I wish I was able to do such a thing." The man pointed to a small little young calf in the field. The calf was so little and young that its skinny little legs wobbled when it walked. "I started by lifting a small calf just like that one," said the old man. So the girl went over to the young calf and she picked it up. She struggled a little. The calf felt heavier than anything she had lifted in her whole life so far, but she was able to lift it up over her shoulders. Well, every morning for the next few weeks, the girl would join the man in the pasture. He would lift the big, heavy cow, and she would lift the little calf. And as days went on, lifting the little calf got easier and easier and easier for her. And the people who came to see the very strong man who could lift a cow would continue to gawk at him in amazement. Let's all gawk. What? And when they saw his friend, they would chuckle. "Look at that girl lifting that little calf. How cute," they would say. Well, one day, the girl told the man, "Lifting this little calf has become too easy and boring." She went over to a large, full-grown cow in the field, and she put her arms under its belly, and with all of her might, she tried to lift the cow off the ground. She tried, and she tried, and she tried, but the cow would not budge, not a single bit. "I give up. Lifting the little calf is no fun anymore, and I don't think I'll ever be strong enough to lift a big cow like you do." "Well, that calf you are lifting is already bigger than the first day you held her. And you are already stronger than the first day you held her. I first started lifting this cow when she was just a little calf. I grew older and stronger each day, and she grew bigger and bigger each day. Every day she got a little bigger, and each time I lifted her, it made me a little stronger. Until one day she was as big as this cow you see here, and I was strong enough to lift her, just like I'd been doing all my life." Well, after that, the little girl understood. She came back to the field every day and continued to lift her little cow until her little cow had grown as big as the biggest cow in the pasture. And who else was growing during that time? The little girl. And people from far and wide would flock to the village every day to watch something miraculous. Every morning, the old man and the little girl would, well, she's a young woman now, would walk into the pasture, and they would each lift the biggest cows in the field over their shoulders. And the cows would say, "Yee-haw, this is fun." I'm sorry, I'm ad-libbing. Okay. The people would watch each day in amazement. How do they do that, they would wonder. They must just be very strong, the people would say. Let's give a hand for our actors. Thank you. So I have a question. Were they just naturally, freakishly strong? Do we think so? No, they were not. They were just ordinary people. They were not born with superhuman strength. How did they wind up that way? What do you think, Camille?
They kept doing it
They
over
kept
and
doing
over and over and over
So
again.
lots of repetition and practice.
Because they did it more often.
Aha, so more frequency helped them be stronger. Any other ideas how they became so strong? Ian, you usually have a thought. Do you have one today? Sorry, I put you on the spot. Mel, yes. No. I want you to be heard.
It's a state of mind, and once you believe you can do it, then you can do it.
Aha, state of mind. What do you think, Peg?
Reps make you stronger.
Repetition makes you stronger. What about time? Can time help us get stronger? Yeah. Have you ever tried to do something really hard and it didn't work out the first time? Like most times, right? Right? Yeah. It looks like you had a thought. Lily, did you want to say something?
Just progress.
Progress. That's right. We all make progress every day, and sometimes we don't notice it because we're doing it every day. Yeah. Please do.
I thought it was cool how the girl and the cow grew together.
Yes. They grew up together. That is so amazing. All right. Well, thank you to our actors today, and thank you for listening to my funny story about cows who like to be lifted in the air and say, "Yeehaw!" And now we will sing our children and youth off to classes.
Let us join together now in a time of prayer and meditation. And so during this time, I invite you into whatever posture feels good for you and your body right now. I invite you to settle into your chair. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Feel your weight in your chair. Notice your body. Are there any areas of tension that can be eased in this moment? Notice your breath moving in and through and out. Find a place of stillness and peace. Let us join in a spirit of prayer and meditation. Ever moving and creative Spirit, nurturing embrace of all that is, mystery of many names and one abundant love. As we gather today, we give thanks. We give thanks for kindness, both that we give and that we receive. We give thanks for understanding and for acceptance. We give thanks for connection and compassion. We lift up the joys and the gratitudes that are on our hearts at this time. We gather here grateful for all of this, grateful for this community, for the gift of life itself, and for so much more. We give thanks. We gather, too, because life feels sometimes too much to bear alone. We recognize and honor all who are struggling with illness, whether illness of body or illness of mind. We recognize and honor all those struggling with grief, we hold in our hearts all those struggling with loneliness, all those struggling with fear, we pray for relief. We pray for healing. We pray for comfort. And here into this holy silence, I invite you to speak out loud the names of anyone who you would surround in loving prayer and light. You may speak those names now. May they feel the support of those gathered here. May they know that they are not alone. Here in this sacred space of community and connection, we remember all that we hold on our hearts this morning. Amen, and blessed be. Please let us join together in singing the meditative hymn, Spirit of Life, number 123, in your gray hymnal. And if there's a joy or sorrow on your heart that you would like to place into the bowl of water over here with a stone, we welcome you to do that as we sing.
Join me in this unison reading. The words are on the screen. Let us be grateful when we are able to give. It's the next slide.
There.
Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. Let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others. Our faith is centered on the belief that we can make this world a better place for all who dwell in it. In order to realize that vision, we need both the motivation and the means. Your donation helps the community put its faith into action by supporting our programming and facilities. This morning and throughout the month of February, donations that are not designated for another purpose will be split with the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI. NAMI provides advocacy, education, support, and public awareness so that all individuals and their families affected by mental illness can build better lives. The offering will now be collected and gratefully received.
Be thou with us now and always, now and always. Blessed be.
A reading from the 2019 Wall Street Journal article entitled Religion for Adults Means Embracing Complexity by Sarah Hurwitz. What about those of us who never grow up? Religiously, that is. I'm not talking about those who continue to worship a deity of human proportions, one who shares our prejudices and opinions on political issues. I'm talking about people like me, who ditched our childhood faiths in disgust, considering ourselves too smart for religion. We would never do such a thing in a secular context. If somebody told us that they found their 6th grade science or history classes to be dull and overly simplistic, and thus entirely stopped learning about those subjects, we would be appalled. But that is precisely what many of us do with religion. We've rejected the kiddie stuff but never bothered to replace it with an adult version. And that's a real loss, because mature forms of religion don't traffic in simplistic or implausible answers, but push us to ask the right questions. Not just, what does it mean to be happy or successful? But instead, what does it mean to lead a truly ethical life, to be part of a community, to serve something greater than oneself? To find this kind of religion, we need to seek out, and if necessary, create, communities that embrace wise, loving versions of our faiths. We need spiritual depth that is matched by intellectual depth. To understand that faith at its best is a form of protest against the self-absorption, materialism, triviality, and cruelty of modern life. In short, when it comes to religion, many of us still need to grow up, and that means doing the seeking, learning, and grappling required to make traditions of our own.
Thank you, Olivia. Y'all have a very cool pulpit, and I'm going to use the... I feel so powerful. I'm lifting a cow. You know, when I was a child, I thought that Jesus was a magic superhero. At the Christian church of my childhood, I would hear all of these stories in Sunday school and in vacation Bible school about this man named Jesus turning water into wine, multiplying loaves and fishes, healing sick with just the touch of a hand. And young little Allie thought that in order to be a part of my religion, I had to believe that these things happened just as they were told. That Jesus was truly a superhero with magic powers. And yes, I know that the values of radical love, I knew that the values of radical love that Jesus preached were an important part of things, but lots of people talk about love, so it must have been this magic that made this guy named Jesus special, right? The magic must have been why we were still supposed to be talking about this man 2,000 years later, I figured. And so I held on to that idea. And when I became a teenager, it tore me up inside. It took a lot for me to admit to myself that I didn't know how to believe the magic. And so with the way I understood things then at the time, when I was a teenager, then I must not have been Christian, which was heartbreaking for me because it was a religion that I had experienced as being very lovingly passed on to me from my parents and from my ancestors. You know, I'd like to take a moment to share one of these magic Jesus stories with you all. Different variations of this story show up in Christian Gospels of Mark and Luke and Matthew. This is a story where Jesus is traveling with his disciples through a countryside in Galilee, and he's met by a man named Legion. And Legion is possessed by demons. This man had been chained up multiple times, but with the power of the demons, he kept breaking free from his chains. And he sees Jesus, and the man falls at his feet. And then Jesus commands the impure spirits out of his body. He performs an exorcism. And then Jesus sends these exorcised demons into a herd of pigs. that were grazing on a nearby hillside. And then the possessed pigs rush down the hillside and into the lake and drown. And the people who had been herding these pigs, they run off and they tell everyone about what they had just witnessed. Hearing this magic Jesus story today, it's easy to see it playing out in our minds like a horror movie, right? I can't do scary movies, I'm sorry. But I do know that scene from The Exorcist where the girl's head turns around 360 degrees and she's like vomiting pea soup everywhere. And we can just picture this pale man, his head turning all the way around, him vomiting, and then a group of zombie pigs freaking out and drowning themselves. One question I didn't know to ask when I first heard this story when I was a young child was, why were people even raising pigs if they were in ancient Israel? Jesus and his people were Jewish. They would not have eaten pork. According to their religious beliefs, pigs were unclean. So why were they raising pigs? Well, it turns out that this story and others that show up in that Gospel of Mark, it was written not long after the Romans destroyed the Jewish temple in Jerusalem. It was a story about a land being occupied by the Roman Empire. Pigs would have been raised in order to sell to and feed the Roman troops. And this man who was possessed, this man named Legion, his name Legion happened to be the word used for a large group of Roman soldiers, legion, Roman imperial soldiers. My friends, this was not a face value story about a man literally possessed by demons. This magic Jesus story was a story being told about the realities and violence of imperialism. It's a story about the horrors of living a life subject to empire. When sharing about this story, Christian historian Diana Butler Bass, she points out the possessed man is the state of human beings under occupation. We go mad, tormented by death, stripped of dignity. And so sending these demons into unclean pigs who then drown themselves, well, that gives you a sense of what the people thought of their oppressors. And that's an ending to the story that gives hope for liberation. It's an ending to the story that features a drowning of the enemy, a drowning of the enemy that harkens back to older stories of the Pharaoh's armies drowning after Moses parted the Red Sea. That's meaningful imagery for the people long ago who first wrote down these magic Jesus stories. And so now, as an adult, I hear this magic Jesus story and I can't help but think about all the ways we are possessed by forces of empire today. And it feels all too easy to think of examples right now, doesn't it? With all the news that has been blasted at us over the past few weeks. And even long before this year, we can think of countless ways that oppressive power structures have occupied our lands, occupied our bodies, changed who we are, stripped people of dignity, causing great violence, causing great harm. An exorcism sounds kind of good then, doesn't it? I don't know about you, but this story and the story behind the story now speak to me in deep and meaningful ways. Especially finding this story in a tradition that has all too often been co-opted and misused as a tool for empire and oppression. There's no way I would have gotten all that meaning as a kid hearing this story for the first time, right? As children, it is hard to know how to look beyond the words of the page, on the page. As children, we don't know how to gather meaning from a story that's deeper than that face value that we're given. As kids, we don't have all of the context or knowledge or cognitive tools yet. So of course, these were just magic Jesus stories to young little Allie. And I wonder, are there stories or ideas from your own religious life, whether past or present, that you still take at face value? Perhaps stories or ideas from a faith community that you were once a part of. Perhaps stories or ideas from a faith community that you've heard and you've never been a part of that faith community. Perhaps stories or ideas from a faith community that you are currently a part of. I really love that reading that Olivia shared with us moments ago from Sarah Hurwitz's Wall Street Journal article. And if you have a chance to read the whole article, earlier in the article, Hurwitz talks about the Jewish prayers that she had learned in her childhood. And she said that she had pretty much written them off as nonsense. And she shares that as an adult, learning the stories behind the prayers opened her up to theological complexities and new understandings of what God could be, rather than a being in the sky who passes judgment, as she had thought as a child. She shares about how grappling with this stuff broke open for her a whole world of faith and connection that she never imagined for herself. She regrets having written off religion earlier in life. We would never do such a thing in a secular context, Hurwitz says. If someone told us that they found their 6th grade science or history class to be dull and overly simplistic, and thus stopped learning about those subjects entirely, we would be appalled. But that's precisely what many of us do with religion, she says. Including plenty who continue to show up at our places of worship and go through the motions. We've rejected the kiddie stuff, but never bothered to replace it with an adult version. And that's the real loss, she says. My friends, there is so much that I love about our Unitarian Universalist faith. including our invitation of religious diversity, including how we support each other on our own spiritual journeys and paths. There is agency, and there's an element of choice there, and that's important and beautiful. And as beautiful and important as that is, it does come with some pitfalls. It can be so easy to see religious views and practices spread out before us like a tasting platter, right? Do I like God over here? No, I'm not sure. How about many gods? Oh, that doesn't feel quite right. Oh, how about no God? Oh, let's sprinkle on some Buddhist meditation. The truth is that we can't have any real understanding of a belief or a sacred practice or a text or a religion with just a taste, right? With just a face value assessment. That does a huge disservice to our spiritual lives, and it does a huge disservice to the tradition in question. It's like taking a bite of iceberg lettuce and now deciding that I understand food. Just food, the concept of food. Right? That taste that we get will always likely be the kiddie stuff that doesn't even get close to the full potential of wisdom and nourishment and rich joy that might be underneath. Because we can't really know the depth and breadth and meaning and possibility and relationship that exists in a religion or in a spiritual practice unless we've really spent time with it. Unless we've let it grow with us, like the cow and the girl in our story. We can't really understand what's there unless we open ourselves up to going deeper, to digging into these stories beyond face value, to spending time looking to find what is there that might be meaningful. Really spending time with them. Asking what can transform us if we maybe put some effort into discovering it. And also, we can't assume we fully understand what other people are talking about when they make statements about their own beliefs or religious life, unless we've spent time with them. This all brings me to another thing that I love about Unitarian Universalism. The fact that we are a living tradition. That sounds familiar, right? A living tradition. A tradition that is meant to grow and deepen and transform. We're built for it. We're built to grow and deepen and transform just as we grow and deepen and transform in our own spiritual lives. I mean, this is literally written into the Unitarian Universalist Association bylaws. I think that's so cool. Our faith has this commitment to revisiting and revising central parts of Unitarian Universalism over time. We did it recently with our principles, our purposes, and our sources during the past few years. We have a process of periodically looking at these aspects of our faith movement and asking ourselves, what have we learned here? How can our religion grow along with us? How have our understandings deepened? How have they widened? How are we called to meet the present and the future? What center holds us, and what needs to be different? When I first learned of Unitarian Universalism's list of principles, the ones that I see that we have printed on the back of our order of service today, when I first learned of that list of principles, I was so excited to see these ideas that my heart fully aligned with put into words that were at the center of a faith community. I read those principles and I thought, wow, okay, I get it. This is my thing now. I found my thing. The principles have meant a lot to me on my UU journey. But in a lot of ways, those principles are just a taste, right? There's some statements that can be so easily taken at face value. And the call is always to deepen, right? To wrestle with these ideas and beliefs, to spend time with them, to investigate the stories behind them, to uncover what is valuable, to let it transform us. And the good news is that that's what our larger faith movement has been doing. That wrestling, that digging, that transforming. That's how, with the help of input and feedback from UUs all over, that's how we as a faith movement find ourselves shifting toward centering our faith's values. And I think I see those listed on the back of the order of service, the 6 UU values, at the center of which is love. Values of justice, values of equity, values of transformation, values of pluralism, values of interdependence, values of generosity, and most importantly, at the center, love. It blew my mind when someone pointed out to me that none of the principles mentioned the word love. But then even that idea of love can be taken at face value, right? A kiddie version, to use Hurwitz's words. Even love requires more wrestling, more digging and transforming to understand its meaning, to uncover what it means to live into love's full and rich potential and possibility for all. To ask ourselves, how can I love well? How can we as a faith community embody love in the world? What does big, universalist love that encompasses all actually look like and feel like? If we really sit with that, if we really sit with these questions, if we really wrestle with them, spend time with them, dig into them, I bet we'd find them more challenging and more rewarding than we could imagine. And I bet we would find that they transform us in ways we could never imagine. May we not settle for face value, dear ones. May we give ourselves the opportunity to really spend time getting to know the gifts of our religious traditions, the stories and the stories behind the stories. May we open ourselves up to what is there. May we let it grow with us. May we put in that effort. Because a deep and complex life deserves a deep and complex faith. May that be so, and amen. Let us now join in singing our closing hymn, number 345, With Joy We Claim the Growing Light. And as our spirits rise in song, if you would like to rise in body, we welcome you to do so. thank you once again for welcoming me into your pulpit today. It's been such a joy to be here with you all. And so, as we extinguish our chalice this morning, may we go forth seeking lives beyond face value. May we go inviting curiosity and complexity and depth, letting our faith learn and grow as we learn and grow. Beloveds, go in peace and go in love and go knowing that this gathered community waits to embrace you upon your return.
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. Where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. Where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that